What is going on, people? Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. It's your boy Minhaz, and today we've got a very special guest for you guys. He goes by the name of Franco Zavala. Now, Franco also goes by the name of the Professional Stepdad. Franco is a host of a podcast show that is called The Professional Stepdad, and Franco's mission is to empower other men to understand what it takes to show up as a father, as a leader, and as a man for a blended family. Now, what does blended family mean? It's a family where the children are not biologically yours. There's an enmeshment, there's a mix of the two. This episode is going to be very special for brothers who are open to getting married. You know, you're looking for a partner, you're looking for someone that's, you know, a potential companion for yourself for the rest of your life, inshallah. Like myself, you're not closed off to the idea of what they come with. Whoever they are, Franco tells me, rephrase what you're saying here, because what you're saying here is important. You're not just choosing the children, you're choosing the person, and whatever they come with, whatever challenges they come with, whatever it is that they come with, you're choosing to commit to this individual. And something that I want you guys to remember through this episode as you watch this is this 3-step framework that Franco created, and I really love: me, us, and them. So your first focus always should be you as an individual. Who are you? How are you showing up for you, for your needs? How are you to understand yourself? Why you operate the way you operate? Number 2, us. How can you be there for someone else, whoever you're committing to? How can you be a better partner for them and them? We're playing with pronouns here. We want to be careful with that one. How you show up for your children and your family. The reason they're third on the list is because they become what you are. They don't just feed off of the words that you give them, they feed off the energy that you are. They don't just communicate with words vocally, they communicate with energy. So if you wish to create a safe environment and a healthy environment, a nourishing environment where you might make mistakes but you have the ability to repair things, it starts with you, and then it starts with your partner, because you're a team, and then it starts with your children. So you must come first. And that's something that I really value, the fact that the sole focus of this episode is back to you, especially if you're a man watching this. Whether you're choosing to be a stepdad or whether you are or whether you're not, this, inshallah, God willing, this will benefit you. So without further ado, let's get straight into the episode. But before we do, you already know how we're going to start this. Let's take a deep breath in right now, and a deep breath out. I'm excited, actually.
Right, I hope you are. I mean, I was talking to my wife about this, and my wife is always like, well, what kind of questions is he going to ask? I'm like, I don't know. Anytime I do a podcast or anytime somebody asks me to sit on their podcast, I never want questions like predetermined, right? They're just better if you just flow.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And personally, for my collaborations that I do, I have a few bullet points, but it's more to do with just going off what it is that I'm trying to learn and understand more of. Yeah. So it's more authentic. And yeah, I'm actually really excited to be here, like to connect with you, because I've been listening to quite a lot of your episodes, and yeah. I made the intention to connect with someone like yourself who has that experience of, you know, being a stepdad. And I wanted to know more about, like, you know, someone's experience from a stepdad. Whereas I've been communicating with other men who had the experience or they wanted to. And that's something I've actually heard you say on your podcast as well, in terms of, you know, being careful of the advice that you're taking. And most people, they just give you shit advice, you know. And yeah, so I was just like, well, who's better than me reaching out to yourself? So here we are.
I think one of the biggest points that I try to make to anybody when taking advice or receiving advice, or whether it's books you read, podcasts you listen to, songs, anything. First, make sure the individual that is giving the advice has won in this specific field or is succeeding in this specific field. And 2, most people remember when they are seeking advice, they're not actually seeking advice. So I'd have to say maybe a little bit over 90% of the people that seek advice don't actually want advice, but they want you to solve their problem. and they want you to solve their problem in the quickest, easiest manner. That's going to be with no pain, no stress, no commitment, no worry. And then if you mess around and you try to tell them, well, that doesn't exist, those are the kind of people that will then turn around and either bad talk you, talk bad about content, or they'll try to, disprove the things that you say. And that's really where the advice scenario comes from. It's like, I don't ever take money advice from somebody that's broke. Don't take relationship advice from somebody that's single. Like, just, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. And I guess the first thing I wanted to kind of let you know, the reason why I was even looking into your content was because I was speaking to individuals who are, single parents. And I'm at that stage of my life where it's like I'm open to connecting and committing to someone. And I've never, because I've been in the coaching field for quite a while, I've had students in the past who were single mothers. So I've never seen them as different to someone who doesn't have a child. So for me, it was natural for me to be open to people who have children. And in that situation, it's like I've thought, what way would I be better prepared for a situation where to know the challenges, the struggles that would come with trying to be a stepfather in a environment. And yeah, I've learned a lot from your podcast alone. I must say, it's very informative. And even your story, I love your story. If anything, I've spoken to quite a few people about it, and it was just very reassuring. And even for myself, and I'm sure it's like I've got a lot of followers who are single mothers, and they have this big worry and concern about, whether men actually want that, want to be a part of that situation or not. And I did want to I had a conversation with a woman yesterday, and another collaboration where we spoke about this a little bit. And there's a big fear around, especially for women, knowing that, there's some men that are open to this versus men that I've had conversations with who would outrightly tell me, don't even do it, don't even think about it. And yeah, I wanted to dive a bit deeper into something that I really value from your podcast, which is self-growth, understanding the self. And you start off with yourself, and then you and your partner, and then the children. And I love that framework because it's something that I think is the only way to do things when it comes to any relationship. So yeah, I wanted to ask you a question in terms of being a stepdad. Did you have children prior to?
I can't have kids.
Okay.
So being Hispanic, growing up in a big family, being the youngest son, being the son that's going to carry on the name, I found out about around 6 years into the military, in the Army, that because of the amount of jumps I have out of airplanes and helicopters and all that stuff, I actually I like to say I messed up my plumbing. And I couldn't understand, like I was engaged and we were trying to have a baby and it wasn't working. And then this woman that I was engaged to, again, blessing in disguise, but she ended up cheating on me, right? And she cheats on me and gets pregnant. And then I'm like, wait a minute, that's not right. Because I've been trying and we can't get pregnant. She cheats on me once and immediately gets pregnant. So that pointed all fingers back at me. And that's when I decided to go in and get checked. And when I got checked, sure enough, I have what's considered like a clogged artery in your heart, but in your scrotum area. And I can have a surgery to fix it, but because of the damage and the time and my age, it wasn't lining up.
I get that. It's interesting. Right. So how was that transition from you not having children to, taking that first step? I heard your story on your podcast where you mentioned like that slow transition where you were first involved in the family and just being there, being present, and then that commitment of, okay, I'm going to be a part of this family.
Right. Well, I think I always knew that I was going to be a part of the family subconsciously. I honestly tried to talk myself out of it a lot of times because I was being swayed and talked to by my parents, especially my mom, And by family members, where they're like, what are you doing? Like, you don't want to do this. This is 5 kids. It's a horrible idea. I mean, just everything that you can think of negatively coming from the people you love, mind you. This isn't even from all the people that will eventually end up hating me and then loving me. But this is immediately coming from the people that I love, especially my best friend, who was, again, supposed to be my best friend, right? And best friend means be there through thick and thin, no matter what. You're there. You're that last line of defense. They're your protection. And even my best friend thought it was such a bad idea that when I actually asked him to be my best man in the wedding, he told me no. And this is a friend that I've had for my whole life. So I lost a lot of people doing this. But I subconsciously knew I was going to be in the family. I didn't know. I never thought about success and failure. I always thought about acceptance first. Can they accept me? Will they accept me? Will they ever see me, respect me, value me? All these things. And I was so focused on the outside value and what I was seeking that's where everything stemmed from the Minhaz STEM method, which was I immediately tried to satisfy the kids first. Like, what can I do? Let me be the yes man. Yes, I'll get you anything. Money, movies, stay up late. I was kind of that guy. But the first 2 years, it was really just, okay, I know I want to be there. And I knew instinctively that I couldn't raise these kids like I was raised. And I just knew instinctively. So that's where I had to kind of look inside and say, okay, you got to go start to fix yourself first. And that's where really that personal growth and development came into it, right? It is fix yourself first, because you want to make sure that when you are in and when you're fully in, you've gone all in on this family, you want to make sure that you don't have an excuse or something to fall back on, or you don't have a reason to leave because again, you were never fully committed. So, your question is saying, how did I know? I don't know how I knew. I just knew that I loved my wife. I knew that I fell in love with her. And I knew that everything else after that, including her kids and her family, when their family members are nuts. But I just knew that all that was secondary. I knew I had to love her first. And that's where I knew. So a lot of stepdads will do that. They'll look into this relationship, for instance, for yourself, right? Like, let's say you meet a girl, she's got 2 kids, single mom, 2 kids. Let's say they're between the ages of 3 and 5. Most men would make decisions based off of leaving and staying on, can I handle the kids? Do they accept me? Do they like me? Do they value me? Can I get along with bio dad if he's in the picture? Or other family members that are acting like the bio parent. And that's the opposite way you want to look at it. You want to look at it like at the mom. You want to say, okay, can we love each other? Can I be here for her? Can I show her that I'm not going anywhere? Because remember, most single moms are jaded, scarred, hurt, depending on their situation, like how they got to be single. Whether somebody died or somebody it didn't work out, or a negative situation they're in. Most moms they'll go into every single relationship with a guarded heart. And this guarded heart, it's very simple. It's not, I want to protect my children, because that's mama bears. Mama bears protect no matter what, right? But it's not, I want to protect my children. It's more like, I don't want to be hurt again. How can I know stay? How do I know I can trust you? How do I know that you're the person for me? And then by me, meaning my children. And a lot of men see that as like a deterrent to stay in the relationship, because, they use excuses and phrases like, well, I don't want to be a stepdad because mom never lets me be a part of the conversation when it comes to parenting and discipline and whatever it may be, right? Like, you're not the real bio parent, so you can't tell the kids to do anything. And that's not really what it is. It's more of, you haven't earned my trust yet. I don't know whether or not I can trust you fully to the point where I can hand you over like the reins of, please help me parent, help me raise these kids. And because of that, men see it as some sort of like she doesn't respect me, value me, need me, or I'll never get it. So then that's when they walk away, or that's when they make excuses to leave. So, like I can really just talk about this shit all day, because
yeah, I love that.
I have been through the ringer of this problem when it comes to when it comes to being influenced by outside individuals that don't want to see you win. Now, that phrase in itself is powerful because that can be picked out and inserted into any part of your life, whether it's business, religion, family, friends. You are always going to have outside entities trying to sabotage your journey. And the question you have to ask yourself, especially when becoming a stepdad, is, am I well prepared to go on this journey? Like, do I have everything that I properly need in order to get on this boat and go into the rough seas of being in a blended family? And can I make it through the storms? Can I enjoy the good days? Can I forget about the bad? And most people, men and women, most people have never done enough self-work to prepare themselves for it, because it really tests everything you are, everything you stand for,
Yeah, I love that. I love that mindset, because for me, it's like, it's very similar to the kind of work I do in terms of self work on understanding why I am the way I am. And it started off with me seeking to be more confident in myself, and it led down to this understanding of my relationships with my dad and my mom and with people, and how I can show up as a leader for my clients and the people that were asking me questions, and what that actually means. And it's been a journey of understanding like my deepest fears and how I operate and conflict and how I deal with conflict. And yeah, it's been a crazy journey. I don't think it ever ends. And that's something that I really look forward to, is like being a father one day. And like those challenges will come. And like you said, it's like, I love that, you mentioned that you never thought of it as success or failure, but you just kind of had this mindset of whatever is needed, I will show up. And I remember you even speaking about this on one of your podcasts. And that's the mindset I usually have with anything that I do, is very much like, if I'm in a situation, if I want to intentionally put myself in a situation, I will figure it out on the way. And
right.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a question in terms of self-development, and how your framework of me, us, them, and how that ties into, because the first thing most people do is they think, I have to focus on them, right? It's about the children, the family. Like, I have to focus on others. And
right.
Yeah, why is it important for us to focus on ourselves as an individual before we think about us and them?
Well, okay. So think about when you start a business. When you start a business, it's kind of like when you first start dating. And it all is going to be rooted in this vision that you have of what the business could be, right? And all men think like that. We all envision playing with kids, going to games. There's nothing better in the world, let me just tell you this, man, than the first time you hear dad. Okay? We all envision this moment. And it's this vision that kind of brings us into a situation where, like, okay, I could do this. Because you've already pictured it. It's this movie that you played out in your head that had no obstacles, by the way. It was immediate. I'm going to be successful at this, and it's going to work, right? Especially if you're really buying into whatever the business idea is, or, for instance, being a dad. So when you can break it down into that, okay, it starts off with the vision. And that vision is going to be, this is what I want it to look like. Now, most business owners that aren't rooted in personal development or understanding of organization and time frame and time management, you learn really quickly in a business when starting it, which is, if you aren't properly prepared going in, when the obstacles do come at you on a random Tuesday at 4 p.m., you're going to fold because you haven't properly prepared your mind for it to be able to think yourself out of it, right? So same thing that goes for how I approached being a stepdad. First, right off the bat, everybody told me to get rid of the word step. They wanted me to use words like bonus. And I never thought of stepdad being an outside entity that came in as a replacement, because that's how people see the phrase step and then whatever, dad, mom, whatever. I saw it as step up, step in, step through. That's why I love the word step. I own that. I'm sorry. I mean, can I cuss? Because I
Of
cuss and I
course,
don't mean to cuss.
of
You
course you
know,
can. Yeah,
my wife knows I need to stop a little bit, but that military thing in me is just like,
yeah, I
especially
love
when
it.
I'm
It's
talking.
authentic.
Yeah, it's very Gary Vee sometimes, and sometimes people are like, "You need to calm it down." I'm like, I don't, you know, unless you play it back to me, I probably didn't even hear myself say it.
Passion.
But it's we're good.
Yeah.
So it's this way of looking at it, going, okay, is my mind properly prepared, right? And I can't jump to the end. Like I can't enjoy the splendors and the spoils of my business in my bank account, let's say, until I've done all the work needed in order to get to this thing. Even if you envision it, even if you have goals, right? Where FYI, most people don't even know how to set goals. Yearly goals, monthly goals, daily goals. No, people don't do it anymore. Yet, if they do it at all, they don't teach it in school. They don't teach it in workplace environments. It's all product. And anyway, that's another rant. So when it came to the Minhaz STEM method, and the root of it came from personal growth. Like I knew that as a man between the ages of 31, 41, and then on and on, I know that I'm constantly evolving and changing as a man, a leader, and a father. I know that my kids are growing. So the way I parented them at 3 is not the way I'm going to parent them at 7. And their love language is going to change. It just does. And if I don't learn about how I act and react to situations, like why do I get so pissed off when I hear a loud scream by the girls in the kitchen? Like what triggered that? That I will sit down, I'll write it down, and I'll break it down so I can finally get to the root of it. So then I can get rid of it. You can't get to the root of something and get rid of it until you can see it, feel it, tangibly touch it. You wrote it. So working on yourself first is always going to be the key. And I tell this to single mothers a lot because you'd be surprised. Like I started a podcast for stepdads. It's called The Professional Stepdad because I love sports and I know that there's nothing in the world better than seeing a professional at work. I love it. It's just great to watch. You know, Bob Proctor, I worked with him for a few years, and Bobby's always telling me that, to be frank, he's nothing better than a pro at work. So when I launched the show, I knew that dads, for instance, like yourself, you want to be a dad one day, you're open to moms with kids, you're definitely you're in your draft stage. Like you haven't even been drafted yet. You're not even in your rookie season, right? Because there's a lot that you have to go into. But your goal as a man, a leader and father in a blended family should get to be to a point where you can feel so confident in your abilities to parent, to love your wife, and to love yourself that you can look in the mirror and say, I am a professional at this. This is what I do. You know, I might not be good at this and that, but at this is me. This is what I'm good at. And you got to get yourself there. So that all comes from the me, like working on you. What kind of books do you read? What podcasts do you listen to? What songs? You know?
So I like reading books on understanding how to do inner work when it comes to trauma, and podcasts is very much based on therapy and self-therapy and masculine psychology. I don't know if you're aware of the guy. He very much approaches things from a place of understanding parts of yourself and internal IFS, basically, which stands for internal family systems, and very much self-development. Like that's just the stuff that I'm reading, and a lot to do with like relationships. That's like something that's very valuable to me, and I like to learn more about how I can show up as a better man and leader. It's very much an obsession of self-development.
Of course, it is very much. But you know, self-development is big. There are people that read books. There are people that listen to videos and watch YouTube clips of Les Brown giving a speech or whatever it may be. But if you don't know who you are as a man, if you really don't know who you are, then you'll never fully understand the path that you need to put yourself on in order to become that version that you envision. Because there are a lot of men that think that they know who they are, whether it's rooted in false confidence or it's rooted in, I don't know, maybe their mother loved them too much when they were a kid and they never did wrong. I don't know. There's a lot of little things that can be tied into it, right? But you have to think to yourself, okay, becoming a better man is all about knowing who you are confidently, walking in there confidently. For instance, I do this in a lot of my confidence teaching classes that I do with kids. I think it's smart to teach kids confidence. There's nothing wrong with it. Young men nowadays, they're such pussies. They have no confidence. Nobody knows how to talk to one another, so they're Snapchatting each other. And, then they want to know why they have social anxiety. Because you don't freaking talk to people. That's why. You let a computer do it. Anyway, but that's just the confidence that you have to have. So when you're looking at confidence, if I was to ask you, for instance, let's say you came in and interviewed for me. Let's say I'm a woman that is interested in you, and I say the phrase, "Tell me a little bit about yourself." What would you say?
I would say, so I'm a passionate individual, and I'm very much interested in understanding myself in terms of leadership, being better, being responsible, and finding.
Okay, I didn't say describe. I didn't say describe your aspirations or describe Tell me about you. Tell me about yourself.
I find this uncomfortable.
Right? You know why? Because most people can define themselves by words and phrases. I am this because of that. I'm passionate here and I want to do that. That's awesome. That's great. I am 6 foot and I want to be 6'6", even though I'm 45 and it's not going to happen. I want to play basketball in the NBA. Like, I can just start saying random stuff too, because that's how I maybe see or feel. But when I say, tell me about yourself, I need to know. I need to know as a man, a leader, and a father. I need to know who I am, so I don't ever slip into trying to be somebody I'm not. Identifying oneself and being aware of who you are truly, to the core, down to your heart, that core value. Knowing that will help you make the right decisions as you move forward through your blended family journey, through any journey that you have. Because you need to be able to get to a point where you can be like, this is not for me. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. If you join a woman and she's got kids and you're in it and you're doing your best, but you know yourself, and about 6 months, whatever in, you can be honest and make shit, I'm just not good at this. This is not for me. It's better for you to know yourself, to stop it in its tracks, so that mom can make room for the man that she is supposed to be with. But there are so many men, we hold on to our pride and our inability to ask questions and help. We can do everything. We solve all problems. There's nothing wrong. I can do it myself. All men think like that. And that's good to have that confidence, but you have to be able to identify your weaknesses and know who you are, so that you can step away if needed to make room for whomever that person's supposed to be with. But they don't, so they stay because their pride keeps them there. Next thing you know, they're 3 years in, they don't have a good relationship with their spouse or their girlfriend still. Kids don't really like him because he never really jumped in and tried to get to know who they were. And before you know it, you're 3 years in. You then finally decide to leave because it's easier now. There's all these reasons to leave. When if you knew who you were in the beginning, you could tell, man, right off the bat. Like, I didn't have any kids, went into 5 kids overnight. It was like, it was quick. But in no point of my decision making did I ever think, oh, I can't do that. No, this is not for me. I immediately was like, not only can I do it, I'm going to be great at it. Because I knew that this is what I wanted. I knew I wanted it. I knew I instinctually wanted to be a father. I knew I instinctually wanted to have this great relationship with my wife. I knew it. And because I knew it, I locked in on it and I was able to move forward. So for instance, for yourself, when I say, tell me about yourself, you need to come up with 3 good adjectives, even if it's just 2, something that describes you, that describes nobody else in the world. And then you can take these words and formulate them into a story, which is always fun, especially if you want to be a speaker. Like, I'm assuming you like to speak on stage, right?
Yes.
So when somebody goes to me, all right, so tell us about yourself. First, it's important to remember to speak clearly, and to, when you pause, don't speak again until they speak. But when somebody says, tell me about yourself, I go, oh, great question. So I am a bunny in gangster clothing. Now, mind you, what I just said makes no sense to most people. Bunny in gangster, what are you talking about? So, of course, when I'm in conversations, they're like, what? You're a what? I go, I'm a bunny. A bunny in gangster clothing. And they're like, what does that mean? We said, tell us about yourself. And I'm like, well, what I mean by that is, on the outside, I've got tattoos, and if I wear a wife beater and it's late at night, chances are, if you see me coming from the opposite side of the road, you're going to move to the other side because, I kind of look intimidating. But if you get to know me, Franco, you know that I cry at movies, I love musicals, I'm a big softie, I'm a girl dad, like I'm a bunny, but my outside shell is this gangster, this mentality, like I can handle everything. But I know who I am. Right? I know who I am internally. That's what I mean by that.
I get that. It's interesting. I think it's the first time someone's ever asked me that question, actually.
Yeah, but it's an important question to ask because think about it. When you sit down and you go to date the single mom, that could be your wife and your future best friend and all these things that can happen. If she ever says, tell me about yourself, and you can, and with full confidence, tell her exactly who you are as a man, leader, and father, that you're not going to sway from that, but you're going to build on top of it, it will instill so much more confidence in her ability to open the doors for you, right? To open the doors and let you into her heart. Remember, she needs time to heal. She needs time to mend. She needs to do personal work. She needs to get to know herself more. She needs to learn how to forgive. In your situation, when you jump into this relationship, you need to learn how to shut the fuck up. You need to learn how to not solve her problems. You need to learn how to just listen and agree. Right? These are things that all come from knowing who you are. And it's such a big damn thing, man. I've been really going heavy on that. Like, it's so big. It's so so important, so smart.
Love that. Love that. Would you say in terms of before you became a stepdad, did you develop that sense of self prior, or would you say that came afterwards?
So it's a yes and no. So before I became a stepdad, I was like everybody else. I was in the Army. I got out. I started a job. I started working at a mortgage company, and I was making great money in Florida until the crash of '08, where everybody lost everything. But then I saw the movie The Secret. I thought it was the biggest piece of garbage that I've ever seen in my life. As a matter of fact, I watched like a minute of it. And then I don't know what happened, but I saw it again. I don't know where I was, maybe at a friend's house. And I think I got maybe let's say 15 minutes into the movie this time. I'm like, this is freaking stupid. Like, what do you mean I could sit on a couch and attract a car to me? That doesn't make damn sense to me. And then fast forward 6 months before the crash, I watched the movie again by myself. I made myself sit down, and I realized right then and there that I needed to not only change for me, but I needed to change for the future me. So I made a decision right then and there to walk away from being a mortgage broker and walk into, okay, how do I learn personal growth? Like, where are these people at? I had no idea where they were at, right? I didn't know they existed in this earth. Like, up until that point, I thought personal growth was, to be perfectly honest with you, everybody makes fun of personal growth. Think about it. If you say you're a personal growth teacher, people are like, what? Like, you're a what? Like that hokey crap. You do that? I'm like, yeah. Like, don't you? But I was that person. I was so cynical and I was so negative all the time. So when I made the point to do it, that's when I started the personal growth journey. Dude, I've been on this journey since 2008, mid 2008 until today. And I still every morning do the exact same routine about getting to know myself, because I'm a man and I evolve and I change and my kids change and they leave and our relationship with my wife changes. And I got to constantly do that whole step back and have a reminder, like, okay, get to know who you are again. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So
would you say that changes constantly, like with new challenges?
Yeah, there's always new challenges. Okay, so for instance, I'll give you an example of a new challenge. The old me, and when I say old me, I'm talking 6 months ago, so not too far along, but still, I'll show you the change till now. So you're in the UK, I'm here in the United States. I have my office at home. which is full of children and friends, my wife and dogs and cats, and it's like a freaking zoo here, right? And for some reason, I used to always get, even just up to 6 months ago, I was trying to control everything so much that then I would respond and react in such a negative way by screaming, yelling, please be quiet, I'm trying to work, like all these little things, because I was trying to control my narrative of the day. I was trying to control situations, and then I was letting little tiny things bother me and throw me off. So then I had to go back and recenter myself to the point where I'm like, literally everything I got bad, upset about, or I blew up about over the last 6 months was I could fix it just by relaxing, let it go, like let it flow. You can't stop it. You can't stop things from happening. You can't stop the timing of things. You can't stop how people treat you. You can't stop anything. But what you can do is you can ask yourself, how am I going to respond to whatever that is? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so that happens in business, and that happens in relationships. Like the way I parented my son, who's now 14, when he was 7, is just different. He's growing up. He's going through puberty. And his love language has changed from quality time to words of affirmation. He needs to hear more encouragement now. When before he didn't need any of that. It was just, I want to spend time with you, Dad. Now he wants to kind of, he's going off on his own, being by himself. But it's a constant growth, brother. It's a constant study. I constantly listen to videos each and every morning. I meditate each and every morning, and I still journal each and every morning. And I haven't stopped that for 20 plus years.
I get that. Would you say that's something your wife is also doing?
So she didn't. My wife has grew up with a mom like me. In reality, if you were to actually look at our life through a movie or through a lens, my wife and I should be fucked up. We should have daddy and mommy issues. Both my parents were alcoholics, same with hers. She was raised by a billion stepdads. I think seven different stepdads. Nobody ever abused her or anything, but still not a real, her mom just, she never got remarried until recently. So my wife wasn't really into that. She was receptive of it, but it kind of overwhelmed her, I guess. When you're a mom, the last thing you want to do is add more to your plate. Ask any mom. Like any mom can tell you that she's so busy, the last thing she wants to do is add more to her plate. And when you look at personal growth, and by looking at your personal growth, it's such a journey and it takes so much time, and you have no idea when it's going to pay off. That you have to ask yourself, can I be patient with the process? Can I be patient with the process? My wife had to ask herself that. And it wasn't until like the last 5 years where she really went heavy on it. And now she's a health coach. She does exactly what I do for men, but for women that are wanting to get healthier.
Wow. It's amazing. Love that. It's really cool.
Pretty cool.
It is.
Yeah.
She is. That sounds amazing. Because for me, it's like, I know the value of I guess the reason I ask is because I don't always meet people that, I take that very seriously. And I wanted to kind of know your perspective on that in terms of, and you're right, it's like mothers do have a lot on their plate. And it's like the last thing, especially with self-development, you're adding a lot more work to the table, right? So would you say like you being the man in that situation and being the leader, it's like naturally your growth equates to growth for everyone that's around you?
Yeah, of course. We started this conversation when you were talking about how you love the Minhaz step method. And when you get to the us part, obviously you haven't done anything with the kids yet, because most men, like I say, start off with go to the kids first, and then they forget to work on the relationship with themselves, or they go to the relationship, then they forget to work on themselves with the kids. Like name whatever way you want to jump that, they don't do it anymore. So most men do skip to the children because they think that in order to be a great stepdad, in order to be a great leader, the kids have to what? They got to accept me. They got to value me. They got to respect me, right? Respect is earned. It's not given, and it's earned over time. So I made a conscious decision when I jumped to the us portion of it. I knew that if I did everything that I needed to do to work on me, and then I began to work on a relationship so that we could grow together, the children will see it naturally. The children will, they pay attention. The children are smart. When you don't think they're listening, they're listening. When you don't think they did something, they did it. And over the years, what I've come to the conclusion of, which is really cool to see, is that the way I think and how I respond and act and how I treat mom, they not only, my girls don't not only expect that from my one daughter's old enough to have a husband, so she's married. She expects that from him, right? But it's the way they approach life now. Like, they're still kids, I get it, but it's starting to rub off on them to the point where you can see it. You can see the personal growth, tiny little things inside them. It's really cool, especially when you're like, for instance, my son had a basketball game the other day and he didn't do really well. And after the game was over, we're in the car and I look back, I go, so tell me what you learned today. What'd you learn today? And his answer to me was real simple. He goes, Dad, I let my mind take control. And I go, okay, you did. What? How do you mean? He goes, I was talking so negatively about myself on the basketball court that I started to play more negative. I started to play down as opposed to playing to my potential. I go, so what does that tell you need to do, son? He goes, well, it tells me that when that happens, I need to shut it off and just stay present. And that's coming from my 14. So the kids didn't understand it at first. They didn't really understand why I do what I do and why I read the books that I read. I mean, I read 22 books last year alone. And I'm not a reader. I hated reading. I wasn't a student. I hated school. But if I want to be the best version of me, I got to make sure that I'm sharpening my tools to become the best version of me. You know, and I want to make sure that I'm mentally prepared and ready for the good and the bad. Because you can screw up big time if good things happen. I know that sounds strange, but if you aren't mentally ready for really great things to happen, you won't know how to handle it. And you'll fumble the ball and that's it. It's over. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with that. Does it feel like you have to be prepared for what you're asking for?
Yeah, you have to be prepared. You have to, and prepared is such a big word because saying I'm prepared for something, it can come across as no matter what happens, I can handle it. Well, that's obviously not the truth because you can prepare all you want and the exact opposite happens. You have no idea how to handle that situation, right? That's where confidence is going to play a big key. Can you confidently let go of the game plan that you had and move immediately into a new game plan that's going to work for you, even if it means taking 10 steps backwards? That's being mentally prepared. That's being properly positioned in this world where you can know how life works. So when the balance does become unstable, how do you get yourself back into that position where you're balanced, right? But most people, when balance becomes unstable, they revert back to what? Old habits, old thinking, old action, old everything, because it's comfortable.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. The personal growth itself, man. I wish more people, when they listen to your show and to my show, I wish they would be able to extract why I tell them to do that. And it's real simple. The answer is, if you don't expect a lot of great things. Just don't. I'm sorry. Don't. If you're not working on yourself, don't expect to be a great dad, leader, and father. Your relationship to be great. If you're not working on your relationship with your wife, don't expect the kids to ever accept and value you. Just don't. I'm sorry. You know, that's being able to look in the mirror and say, oh, I fucked up.
So, you know, you mentioned like your family, your upbringing, and how your parents were alcoholics. How did that affect you in terms of you understanding what it means to be a man?
Well, I said earlier that I can't raise my kids like my parents raised me. My mom, my dad being alcoholics made everything so much bigger than it was. Like if you spilled something small, it became the biggest problem in the house. When I would make mistakes with my dad, I grew up in a day where it was still, okay to get your ass whipped and be aggressive and be angry, walk around angry. And when I first entered my family, I realized really quickly that I was that exact person. I wasn't aggressive, like hitting or slapping, because again, I didn't really know the kids too much, right? I was still getting to know them. But I could feel it. I could feel my dad and my parents and the way they raised me coming out immediately. And I like, it was a huge wake up call for me, because every time that things weren't working for me in the beginning, or even year 10, I'm not kidding, even year 10, it still happens. When I find that things weren't working, I want to revert to drinking. I mean, in the Army, I became an alcoholic. When I would run from my problems, and alcohol was my buddy. And up until even year 10, I found myself slipping back into that, coming back out of it, slipping back into it, coming back out of it. Right? And the only reason I'm able to come back out of it is because I positioned my mind to rethink a way back to the top, right? Back to my balance. And, that's why I tell people a lot of times, I'm not smarter than you, quicker than you, faster than you. I just know that when bad things happen, you'll go into your mental prison. I'll go in too. I just brought a key. That's the difference. So when you're staying in there for your 30-year sentence and you're depressed and depression kicks in, remember, depression, a lot of people like to confuse what depression is. Depression is simply anger turned inwards. So depression it's inverted, right? When you get depressed, you go inside. You don't talk, you don't speak, you don't do nothing. When you're angry, what do? You go outward. You yell, you scream, you react. So if you ever want to know why somebody's depressed, find out what they're pissed off about. What are they angry about? Because whatever that anger is, instead of expressing it outwards, they shot it inwards and it became their world, that mental prison. So everybody goes into mental prisons. I don't care how far you are along your path. I don't care even if it's personal growth or being a father. We all go into mental prisons. We all go into downtimes. We all have moments where we want to quit and give up. It happens to everybody at every point. It never goes away. You just have to ask yourself, have I mentally prepared me and my situation and my family so when it does happen, I can think myself out of it and keep moving, right? But man, mental prisons are big. A lot of moms struggle with that. They've been jaded, they've been hurt, they've been scarred. And the last thing they want to do is let another man into their life. Not going to happen. No way. We're not going to go through the same thing that we went through here. And then because they're not working on themselves, let's say you're opposite of whomever that last guy was. You're awesome. You're great. You're wonderful. But because she hasn't worked on herself, she will then unconsciously look for reasons to compare you to her old relationships. And when she finds something even remotely similar to it, oh boy, she'll go into turn off mode, protection mode. You'll fight more. It's big. I mean, it's real big. That's why, moms have to realize that if you're going to let a new man into your life, because it's not like they're sitting around not wanting somebody to be in their kid's life, not wanting somebody to love them. We all want somebody to love us, right? But how can you ever ask anyone to love you again if you haven't properly learned how to love yourself? How? And that's just so big, man. And I wish more stepdads understood that going in. Like a lot of stepdads, a lot of men will step into these relationships and it doesn't go the way they envisioned it. And they start complaining. You ever go on these Facebook posts, these groups? It's just a laundry list of complaints all the time, every day. And it's so bad. They think that it's them asking for help, but it's not. It's just them complaining about their life, because God forbid you fuck around and fix their problem. I'm serious. Nobody wants. It's weird. Like everybody seeks help, but nobody wants you to solve their problem. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I'll never understand it, because if I'm asking for help, for instance, if I came to you, my objective would be for you to not only solve my problem, but tell me how you solved it, the direction in which you solved it, and then give me some action steps. So when I walk away, I won't need to text you and call you every 2 days because I'm lost. You've given me the roadmap. You've given me the game plan. And that is that's where that me, us, them method comes into play. If you find yourself lost, ask yourself where you're at. Just really mentally, just sit down and take a deep breath and go, okay, where am I? Have I been doing the self-work? Okay, yeah. Okay, have I been focusing on my relationships? I haven't been on a date with my wife in 6 months. Well, then you're fucked up. That's where you fucked up. Go plan a date night. Simple. Rebalance, recalibrate.
I love that. Well, no, we can talk all day about this.
Yeah, man. I mean, I know I tend to ramble sometimes, especially when it comes to this, but lately with the show and with the stuff I put out, even like I said, I've been working on personal growth my whole life. Or when I say my whole life, I mean since '08, but I feel like this is in life. And the negative comments and the ignorance and the stupidity that I get, it was starting to affect me a little bit. I'm just like, fuck, man, what I'm saying, am I wrong? Like, am I being too aggressive? Am I not saying, or where's the disconnect? Where's the miscommunication about it? And then very quickly, like I said, mental prison, I had my key. I opened it up, I wrote it down, and it was real simple. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about, period. You can't judge me on my journey. You're not on my journey. It's like I can't judge you, but I can point out key factors. Here's something I can easily point out. Are you having problems with your business or your day or your family? Yes? Cool. It's your fault. Sorry. I don't care if it's everybody else doing everything to you, the way you're responding and reacting and how you're handling the situation, it's your fucking fault. Too bad. Sorry. I know you want me to be like, oh, it's Stephanie's problem. I can't believe she's treating me like that. No, Eric, it's not Stephanie's problem. It's the fact that you're sensitive. You're triggered. You get triggered off a little stupidity, stupid words, phrases, how she rolls her eyes or took a deep breath. Like, it's your fault. Sorry.
It's about taking responsibility and be willing to find out what triggers you. Like you mentioned when you said the screams in the morning whilst you're working, and finding that out instead of going out there blaming them for it and shutting them down, which is what most people would do, is project outside of themselves, right?
Right. And you can't anticipate every problem that's going to come to you. You just can't. Obstacles are those funny things that we see when we take our eyes off our goal. But obstacles are still, they're going to happen. You can't stop them from happening, right? Everybody looks down every once in a while. You always see an obstacle, and you're going to hit it. And you're going to come face to face with it. And at that moment in time, have you properly prepared to climb over it? Have you properly prepared to think your way around it? If the answer is no, then you need to go back to the start. Sorry. Because at the end of the day, the wall's too high. The rope was too short. I can't get around the walls because it's too muddy. Those are all outside things that you can't control, but you can't control how you react and respond, which all stems back again to, it's your fucking fault. Sorry. Are you going to take responsibility, take a step back? Are you going to sit there and cry about it all day? Are you going to sit there and tell the world your problems? I
get that. I get that. How would you say in terms of your communication? So you've got 5 children, right?
4 girls, 1 boy.
4 girls. So in terms of your communication, the difference between how you would speak to your son versus your daughters, what is the difference?
So, great question. That's such a great question. Such an important question. Answer. The 5 love languages for children. You're going to be a parent, you need to read that book. You need to identify the love languages of your kids. You need to identify your love language. Do you know yours?
Yeah, that for me is physical touch and words of affirmation.
Okay, cool. So mine, words of affirmation, physical touch. Exact opposite. My wife, same with you. But before I didn't know any of this. And if you don't know your kids' love language, you won't know how to talk to them. You won't know how to react to them. Kids grow up. So what they liked, they like SpongeBob one week and the next week they're wanting to watch, Californication. I don't know, something crazy, like total different opposite sides of the coin. But when it comes to communication, if you know their love language, it's not hard. It really isn't. It's not hard at all. Kids will open up and respond to you and tell you what's on their mind if they know that you actually care. And caring has nothing to do with giving them a hug or saying I love you or I'm proud of you. It's the unspoken communication. It's the things you do without speaking. So, for instance, my middle daughter, hers is acts of service. And when she's got something on her mind, doesn't necessarily share it with us. So then I know something's on her mind. So then I'll do a few things to just let her know, hey, I see you. I hear you. I know something's wrong with you, and it's on your time. I know you're going to open up to me. So I'll help her with her laundry if she's busy. I'll go get her favorite Starbucks. I won't expect anything in return. But what I want her to see is not only am I ready and willing to listen, to talk with you, but I also know who you are, and I'm not trying to force the issue. And oh, by the way, here is the exact way to communicate with you because I know your love language, which will then bring your walls down and then open up communication with us, right? And as men, we cannot expect to solve their problems. They don't need us to. They just need you to listen. Just listen. Communication is all about listening. And if you listen closely, they'll tell you exactly what they need, exactly what they want. So you deal with parents and step-parents. So like, my stepson doesn't even like me. Like he hates me, never talks to me. He's very rude to me all the time. And when I hear a man say that, like, yeah, he'll on Facebook, I need help. My stepson is ignoring me. He closes the door. He never says goodbye. What am I doing wrong? Most men will be like, yeah, it's teenage years. And they chalk it up to social acceptance of, they're just teenagers. That's how they are. Or, I don't know, you haven't been there long enough, or, mom needs to help you. No, the reality is that your teenager is treating you like this, not talking to you and trying to avoid you because you have no fucking clue how to talk to them. You have no clue how to communicate with them. You have no clue who they are. They don't know they can trust you yet because you haven't done the work. You haven't put in the work to get to know who they are fully. And when you do that, it changes everything. Always, every time. Every time.
Especially through their love language as well.
Especially through their love language. But again, remember, when kids react in a rebellious way, what are they actually trying to tell you? They're trying to tell you, no one hears me, so now I'm going to do X, Y, and Z so you can see me. Then maybe you'll start listening. When if you just look at it for what it is, it's like, oh shit, I'm not actually listening. I'm not taking the time to know. Like I said, my daughter Clara is one way when she's 13. Now she's 18. I can't parent her the same way. It just doesn't work like that. Right. And if I wasn't listening, I would try to parent her like I did when she was 13, and it wouldn't work. She would be unresponsive to it. But because I take the time to listen to them, to get to know who they are, bottom line is that the open communication is always there. Always. My kids never have a problem talking, ever.
Truly a professional.
Yeah, but look, I am 100% a professional. But it took me patience to get here. It took me time. It took study, work every day, constantly working, being okay with slipping, being okay with going into the dark places. We're men. We're going to go into dark places. It's just going to happen, but it's always going to come back to whether it's the obstacle, the dark place, the situation you don't feel like you can get yourself out of. Have you properly prepared yourself that backpack of goodies that you need in order to succeed on this journey? So where when it happens, because it will, when problems come, they will, have you prepared yourself to handle it? Does it mean you're going to get right out of it? No, I'm not saying that, just because you do the self-work that you're immediately going to snap out of it and everything's going to go back to normal. No, that's not it at all. It's the amount of time that you're going to be down. It's the amount of time that you're going to be in your mental prison. Where most people spend 30 days, I spend 3. When most people spend 48 hours, I spend a few. Same problem, 2 different ways of looking at it. Perspective.
I agree. That's something that I've noticed within myself as well. When I first started my work journey, you can say, what took me weeks and months to linger out of, it's like now it would take me a couple of hours because of the tools that I have access to, or even the awareness to see it from a different perspective. And Yeah, honestly, there's something I'm very passionate about. Like, uh, because my journey was very much, it consisted around of understanding why I am the way I am. And the deeper I got into this journey, I realized how much my father impacted me and my characteristics and my strengths and my weaknesses. And it was really like I really made a commitment to understand him as an individual and really let go of that energy and emotion that I was carrying towards him. Um, because I felt like that was the weight that was weighing me down, regardless of whether he's here or not.
Mhm.
And yeah, as I'm doing this journey, I don't think it's a journey that ends because I do also believe like when I am a father one day, something will show up, and when it does, I will have the tools to be able to reflect on them and to be able to take a step back and acknowledge what's going on here rather than repeating those patterns that I've seen my dad do. And even when I see him now, it's like sometimes my dad, I like to call him the monster in my life. But now he's the teddy bear. He
Okay.
went, yeah. So he went through a mental breakdown.
I love that you just said that. That's so big.
Yeah, it
Oh,
is. It is. And I honestly, I didn't believe I would see that transformation in my life. I thought, because I hear a lot of men that the fathers do pass away being that monster because it
yeah,
never
yeah.
changes. And I also didn't expect that. I thought, I have to accept this is the reality. And I watched this movie, which I would really recommend. It's called I Can Only Imagine. I don't know
I
if
can
you've
only
seen it.
imagine.
Yeah, I
No,
Can
I
Only
haven't.
Imagine. I've seen this movie three times, and I very much felt like the boy in the movie.
Who's in
And
it?
it's a true story about a band called Mercy Me. It's a Christian band,
Wait,
and
is this the kid that started playing Beatles music?
yes, yes, that's it.
Okay. So I know of the movie, so that's good. Keep going.
Yeah, and the movie I watched this about three times, and the story was basically his dad was the monster that turned into the teddy bear. And I was watching this years ago, and I was thinking, this is one of those moments like The Secret. I was like, oh, this is one of those. This ain't happening. But I'll try. I'll try. Because the moral of the movie was for him to truly become the best, he had to go back all the way to the root, which was his father. So I was like, okay, I don't know how I'm gonna do that, but I kept watching the movie, and I was like, I would get emotional about it because I'm like, no way, like this ain't gonna happen. But today, it's like I can say to you that that has happened in a whole different way.
Mhm.
And I found myself now not being able to blame him anymore. And it's almost like now these heavy emotions are within me and I'm acknowledging them. But when I look at him, he, I rather he was the monster at times because then that way I can blame him. Whereas now I'm
Right.
just like, I need to go and figure this emotion out. Whereas before, we could have bounced it off of each other and I could have blamed him. Whereas now it's like, even if I'm aggressive, or even if I'm like rude in any way, he doesn't have it in his heart anymore to give that back. And yeah, it's been a transformation, just becoming aware that these feelings in my heart is my job now to let go of this. And he's at peace. He's truly at
Right.
peace. And I'm happy. I see it. I get to see that because it's like changed the dynamic completely with my mom and my dad. And yeah, for myself to witness that, it was a blessing. And I know most people don't get that. And I didn't think I would
Are
either.
you fearful? Are you fearful you're gonna become a dad? Like you're gonna be a monster?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I'm afraid of that, but I do notice the traits that he had within me, as in like the go-getter, the hunger for success and that drive to have success no matter what the cost is. I noticed patterns that my dad had instilled into me now. And it's almost like I noticed the inner child within me almost like wanting to earn his respect, but not from who he is now. but who he was,
Right.
and noticing that within me, and actually being that voice for myself, and like being able to nurture that fear and the hunger, and allowing myself to kind of acknowledge myself. Whereas before it was like unconsciously I was just trying to earn his approval. And
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like I take this work of being a father very seriously, because I do want to. I see my dad, and I see, okay, what would I have needed? What would have been amazing? What would have, as a child, what would I love to have? And it's like I'm very passionate, and one day, God willing, that I get to see that experience being a father. And that's why I've never been closed off to people who already got kids, because for me, that's like, I see that as an opportunity rather than a burden, which is what most people that I've
Most
spoken
people
to
look
see
at
it. Yeah.
So I want you to do me a favor, and I want you to stop looking at it like that. I need you to stop using the phrase, I am open to a woman with kids,
Okay.
because that's not the kind of man that you are, and the person that you're trying to become, and who you were, and your demons that you've dealt with. When you use phrases like, I am open to a woman with kids, or, you know, um, I'm open to being somebody else's father, whatever it may be, when you look at it like that, just remember that when you say phrases like, I'm open to a woman with kids, if, again, if I'm the woman, I'm thinking to myself, oh, great. Thanks for telling me that you're open for being with me and I mean, it's not like it's a choice. It's either you love her or you don't, kids or not, right? So stop being open, stop saying things like, I'm open to a woman with kids, and just start expecting the woman that's supposed to be with you to come. Whatever her baggage is, whatever she brings to the table, it doesn't matter. None of that matters. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it's going to make things more complicated. But remember, you're trying to find somebody that you want to spend the rest of your life with. That's your objective. And it doesn't matter what shade of color she comes in and what baggage she brings. Because if you fall in love with her, you can look at her and say, do I want to be with this person? And the answer is yes. You got to just fucking move. It can't be dependent on her kid or her past or her present even. It has to be like how you see her in that moment. You know what I mean? So I can give you the advice I can give you is this. Let's say you're out with your pals, and you're at the pub or whatever, and you're getting ready to get a pint, and you see a girl, and she looks back at you, she gives you the eyes, and you know the eyes. You know what I'm talking about. So you're like, you build up the courage to approach her, which FYI, 99.9% of kids that they're growing up today wouldn't fucking know how to walk up to a girl, let alone approach a girl and talk to her. Which is why our job as men is to not only teach our sons, but our sons' friends, like, we need to help change that. But you approach her and you go up and talk to her and whatever. And you go to sit down and you're hitting it off, everything's great. And she's going to eventually drop the bombshell, right? Bombshell is going to be, hey, just so you know, I've got a 3-year-old daughter, right? Most men go into this, oh, really? What's her name? Oh, man, I love kids. Not because they're trying to relate to her scenario. They're trying to relate to who she is and where she's at in her life. They're trying to show her like, hey, kids aren't a big deal. I don't have a problem with it. Whatever. That's what we all do. All men will do that, right? We're trying to relate to the situation. Your better bet would be to say something along the lines of what she says, hey, I've got a 3-year-old daughter. Great, we'll get to her. We'll get to her soon. Let's keep this with you and I. So what do you do again? And just go right back to making the entire conversation about her. She's got to see right off the bat that it's about her. It's about her, not her baggage, not what she's bringing, not where she's been, not where she's at. It's about her in that moment. I want to stay connected right now. I promise we'll get to your kids one day. You can tell me all you want, show me pictures, whatever it may be. But right now, I want to know more about you. Keep it there. Because what it shows is that you're more interested in developing the relationship with her, regardless of any circumstances, scenarios, or baggage, or whatever you want to call it. You want to be there with her. You want to be there in that moment with her. And that is going to go such a long way. If you do decide to date and move forward, and as you progress, I would even highly recommend, yes, she's got a kid, you're going to meet her, that's what she wants, her objective, all this other stuff. it has to always be about her, because no matter what happens at the end of the day, it is going to be you and her. Kids will leave. I have 5 kids. When I began my journey, my son was 3 months old. My oldest daughter was 9. My house is 2 kids in it. 3 of them are gone. They leave. And if my relationship with my wife is not intact as best friends and partners, then it wouldn't matter if there's 5 kids or 1 kid. It's not going to, I think we're going to have problems. So maintain that relationship with her, even in the very infancy stage of the beginning, when you're in the pub and you walk up and you talk to her, and she's, like I said, she drops her, what she calls the bombshell. She'll say something along the lines of, hey, I think you should know before we go any further, I've got a kid, right? That's how it goes, however she decides to say it. And your response and how you react to that in that moment should always be, it's awesome. That's great, but tell me more about you. I want to know about you. Yes, I care about your kid, trust me. And one day I could even be there, and that's how you envision it in that moment. Tell me more about you. This is more about me. Stuff like that. Let her know that you're in it for her. You know what I mean?
I agree. I agree.
It's a very good thing.
That's I think, like you said, like it's the frame, like me, us, them, and it's very much me. Even growing up, I noticed if my parents had their relationship was flourishing between them, that impacts us either way. That is what we needed as kids the most, them having a healthy relationship. Then it comes to us, and yeah, I love that. I remember this. Thank you for that. And I guess,
man. Just remember that
the movie.
It's important to always keep in mind, especially with your relationships, that kids are smart. They're going to notice. They're going to see. They're going to see if you're paying attention. They're going to notice whether or not you care, and how you treat mom, and how you treat yourself. Self-talk is big. But if you don't try to force the issue disappears, and what you would refer to as an issue has now become an experience of learning one another, developing relationships, building trust, love, acceptance. And when you do get acceptance from your kids, so your stepkids, when you get acceptance from them, when they value you, when that time comes, it'll come in the moments you never saw it coming. You don't even expect it. My oldest daughter was my biggest obstacle because she was closest to her dad. So the last thing she wanted was any new man in the situation at all. She did everything she could to deter me from staying. And I never tried harder with her than I did everybody else. I did the exact same work on all the kids, and I did everything that I knew I needed to do. And when she graduated high school, I got a letter from her. And this letter was 2 pages long. And it was the first time she ever acknowledged me and accepted me and told me everything that I did for her to help make her who she is. Didn't expect it, didn't know it was coming. And that is the job of us as men. Go into this relationship, go into these situations, go into this blended family, and don't expect shit. Just do the work. Don't expect anything. And when it comes, it's so much more beautiful. It feels so much better, right? But if you go into it thinking that you need to value me, you need to respect me, you need to listen to me, that shit never works, ever. It's never gonna fucking work. Just go into it just going, all right, I'm gonna this is gonna be hard, it's gonna be tough. Don't expect anything, do the work, build my relationship, listen, and eventually all the hard work and everything will pay off randomly, like I said, on an idle Tuesday at 4 p.m. You'll get that thing that you were waiting for that makes everything worth it. Everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I remember listening to your podcast, and it's like you were talking about, it took about a long time for your oldest daughter to accept you. And I totally get it, even from her perspective as a child, it's like it's only natural for them to feel defensive and protective over their family.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and it's like that requires so much patience on your end, and I totally understand that. And if anything, I think it's something that I find very, like I'm very curious about to understand myself and why was I the way I was, because I was that kid that I was very rebellious, and I didn't get attention the right way, so I thought I'd get it the other way.
Mhm.
um So it's like I'm able to, I seek to understand kids because I feel like kids have so much. They usually put it all out on the table for you from the get-go, and it's easier
Mhm.
to communicate with them. Whereas, as adults, we learn to we bury it slowly. And yeah, yeah, I appreciate this conversation. It's been honestly like something I didn't think I would be passionate about learning to be a. But I was always passionate about understanding how to be a better father. But in terms of coming down this like conversation to speaking to yourself, hearing your story, which I love by the way, in terms of Bob Proctor, listen to that episode too. Uh, the whole
Yeah,
what
Bob
you
was a fun time to know. Bob pushed me to limits that I didn't know I had. I mean, I valued our friendship all the way to his passing, and I wouldn't even be here now if Bob hadn't fired me.
mm,
And it was the best thing ever, hands down. I mean, all of that, the whole situation. And one of the things Bob told me, and that you said a second ago, which was interesting, because I always talk about my dad being my monster, my bad guy. Bob told me that, uh, I was like, my dad was just I used the bad guy phrase, but same situation. My dad was the bad guy in my life. I was afraid of him, scared of him. I didn't want to disappoint him. I was fearful of him at the times where like I ran away from home because I didn't want to get my ass whooped, stuff like that. And Bob made it very clear that version of my dad, of the bad guy that I had, that I was holding on to and I was using for excuses and blames, um, that version needed to be there because it molded me and it got me to the point where I was seeking out ways to be better than him, ways to be a better dad, ways to be a better father, ways to be a better leader. And if my dad hadn't have been that bad guy, that monster at times, even more, sometimes more often than not, it wouldn't have driven me to get to this point, right? It wouldn't have driven me to try to, in the best way I could put it, driven me to try to be better than him. And now when I look back at it, thank God my dad was that monster. Thank God he was, he did what he did. It sucked in the moments, and I definitely used it as a fuel to be an alcoholic and a womanizer when I was younger. But man, if I was to, if I was to look at it from the goggles of where I am currently in this world, I wouldn't have changed a single moment of it. And now instead of looking at it like my dad was this person, I'm like, my dad was this person. Like my dad didn't sugarcoat shit. My dad didn't hold back anything. And it hurt me and it scarred me, but it strengthened me and it hardened me to where, like I said, where I can confidently say that I'm a bunny in gangster clothing. Bottom line, I'm protective as shit. I got 4 girls and my beautiful wife. I'm protective. If somebody messes with my kids, I'm protective. If somebody messes with my family, I'm protective. But again, I'm also empathetic, sympathetic. I listen, I forgive. And that's the difference between the monster that my dad was and the monster that I am. Because I'm definitely not a monster in the terms of like I'm evil or I'm scary. But you better be fucking goddamn right that I'm intimidating when I need to be. Because my children and my wife and my family need to understand that when shit hits the fan or something happens, they can get behind me and that I'm going to protect them. That's where the monster is needed. You need to be able to tap into that monster. The difference between you and the guy that ends up going to prison for 30 years is to control it, to channel it, to accept it for what it was. women that are coming into new relationships and have children and looking for somebody like yourself that wants to be a great dad, they need to accept where they are. It's needed. It sucks, but it's needed. Tap into it. It hardens you. It strengthens you. Accept, making it part of your DNA instead of trying to wash it away. You know, because you're going to need it. You're going to need to be a hard ass sometimes. Period. You just are. And you'll understand that. You'll see that I'm not saying anything about like discipline, spankings, and all that shit. You know, you don't need to do that shit anymore. I get more done with love than I do with being aggressive. I just do. You know, I used to be like my son. Used to be like, you know, when he would get in trouble, he would have to do more chores, or you know, I would get a little loud. And I've recently switched that to when he gets in trouble, I give him hugs and kisses, and he hates it. But I love it, but he hates it. And now it makes him not want to do the stupid thing that he was doing, because he knows that if he does it again, not only am I going to kiss you, son, I'm going to wait for your friends to get here, and then I'm going to kiss you. God forbid that happens. And I'm telling you, it's totally changed. He makes his bed more now. He does his chores without me asking. And it's funny. I got more done with honey than vinegar. You know? So, but like I said, be okay with your monsters. There's nothing wrong with it. There just isn't. Accepting it for what it was and understanding that that's not who you're going to be, unless you need to be.
I agree. I agree. That's amazing. I think you perfectly said that. And yeah, I really do appreciate, you know, this conversation. And I was actually really excited to talk. And there's so much like that we could keep unpacking. And yeah, I know you mentioned that, you know, people have been very critical, but I think for myself, I'm a big fan. I really take value from the things that you share, and it's something that I'm truly like applying into my life. So there's so much that I find valuable in your experience and the words that you share. And I just wanted to let you know that, because that is from my experience. And I'm sure there's other guys out there, and most of us that watch and we take value, we usually don't say much. I've noticed that even myself.
Yeah, I know.
Watch, they usually don't say anything. They just soak it all in and apply it.
And I'm glad. I'm first of all, thank you for your kind words. I'm humbled and grateful that you find any value in what I do. And that's one of the things that got me over this little hump of the negative comments, which is in order to change the world and in order to change this narrative that I'm trying to change, I only need to affect one. You know, one is greater than zero. And I started looking at it from those that, you know, the eyes of one is greater than zero. And if you get value on what I say, amazing. And if you hate what I say, equally amazing. Because the crazy part about it is that for content wise and speaking wise and structure wise and helping wise, there's no way I can get to a point where I can help you if I don't know what's wrong. And I can't tell what's wrong unless you tell me what's wrong. And sometimes the only way to tell me what's going on is you getting fucking pissed off. And you're going to blurt everything out. And then I can finally look at what's going on, the negative comments. You know, when I look at these negative comments, I can now look at these comments and go, oh, okay, well, there's a great learning tool. Take that, get rid of this, move on. Because I know I'm going to probably run into whatever that is over here, and I can help this guy if this guy doesn't want my help. This guy definitely needs my help, but right now he doesn't want it. Okay, cool, move away, move out of the way. That's one thing I'll never do. I'll never sit around and wait for you to accept me. It's very simple with me. You're going to say, like, awesome, you need it. And that's how you have to continue doing what you're doing with your show and your podcast, growth, your top. I know you want to be a dad, a leader, and a mentor. I know you're trying to help out others. And that is in itself something that you should be proud of. I mean, no matter what you do, no matter what happens from here on out, just be proud of the fact that you're even at this moment in your life. But just remember, don't force anything. Don't force anything. And when it shows up, let it flow. You know what I mean? Remember when I told you about the conversation at the bar? Oh, by the way, I got a kid. Cool. Sounds good. But tell me more about you. just tells you, it shows that you're listening and leave you comments and want to be on your show, shows that you're listening. And it's big, man. So make sure you're giving yourself credit where credit's due, because not a lot of us do. We create all this content and we never give ourselves credit.
I know. And I appreciate that. I appreciate your words. And yeah, I'll remember that. I remember everything you said. I'm probably going to listen to this again because I think there's just value in the conversation. And I'm actually excited to share this with everyone else that follows me, because I think it will bring a lot of value to everyone, and hopefully introduce a lot of other guys to even understanding what it means to be a father, not just a stepdad, but a father generally. And for me, that's something I think I will do. This is something I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life, as long as I'm alive. And I want to constantly keep sharing value of things that I'm passionate about. So yeah, I want to thank you for, making the time for this, and hopefully, we come back again to talk about something. I would love to do that.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you ever want to talk about anything, do let me know. And before we go, I wanted to ask you, what is it that you offer for your services, and just know a bit more information around that.
So as far as like what I offer and stuff, like we started going down a direction of offering like calls for men and programs, but I've learned recently, within the last 7 days, I'm actually digressing. I'm going to take a little step back, and I'm going to move into the whole. I'm going to create a group for men on Facebook. It's going to be called the Blended Family Brotherhood. I want people to join it. We're going to have live calls, Q&As, videos, stuff like that in there. I learned recently, based off of something even you said, when you're like, not a lot of men, people get value, but they don't say much. I need to open up a space where people can say much, where they can speak their mind, where they can ask for real, genuine help, creating that safe space for them. So I'm pushing everybody to Facebook, to our Facebook group. It's called, like I said, the Blended Family Brotherhood. We're going to be launching it later on this week. We're going to be going live on calls. We're going to be having guest speakers. I'm going to have a lot of just different scenarios to put men into, so then they can, find out which direction to go. I mean, my objective here is to get on stage and speak in front of parents and groups like that. And then when one-on-one calls are needed, I'm going to start charging based off of what their problem is, because sometimes, you'll get a stepdad or a man that wants a one-on-one call, and you could really you can give them what they need to do in 30 minutes. And the last thing I want to do is charge somebody an hour for 30 minutes, right? So everything's going to be based off of who you are and what you want. But yeah, that's what we're doing. We're going to take that step back, start that Facebook group, start the live calls, get more speaking engagements, and continue to move forward from there, because this battle and this hill that we're climbing for men, it's a tough one, because men are stubborn as hell and they don't want to accept and admit that they need help. And I realized that it's more of an uphill climb than I was ready for. But again, I know me, right? So I'm okay to take a step back and start from, not scratch, but start from the basics again. So that's where we're going. So biggest thing, Facebook group next week, Family Brotherhood.
Okay, no worries. I will, if you can send me the link, I'm going to attach it to the bottom of this video and this episode. And I myself I'm going to check it out, because I would be interested in being around that environment and just having those conversations. I think that would be great, even for myself. If anything, I've actually made the intention, like I said to you earlier, that I need to be surrounded by like-minded individuals. So that for me is an opportunity, and I would invite anyone that's listening to this to check it out, and yeah, maybe see us there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love that. But other than that, Franco, I want to thank you so much for being here. Honestly, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. And like I said, always blessed, humbled, grateful. I appreciate those listening. Make sure you guys continue to tune in to this podcast, not just mine, but just the podcast for anyone that's trying to help you guys. I mean, it's going to be bigger than you think. So if you're looking for that help and that guidance, make sure you stay tuned in.
Thank you. Take care, guys.
All right. Be well.